And I will always say this, and this is something I emphasize in my company culture because now I have the freedom to build my own culture. Your employees are more important than your clients.
100%. You know, there's this saying, I'm so sorry, but there's this saying which says that you take care of your employees and the employees will take care of your clients.
Exactly. In fact, this is what I often say, that content is the joker of your game. Because a joker can be played however you want. And तुमको अगर बाजी पलटनी है तो जोकर ही तुम्हारी बाजी पलटेगा. So if you've tried a great digital marketing game and you're not getting the results, chances are your content is the problem. You change the content and you'll get the results. That's what we've done for clients. So I am one of those people who loves being married. I love being married. I don't think marriage, when they say, oh, marriage changes you, a lot of people say it with fear, like it's a warning.
But it's for the good.
And I am definitely one of those people who say it's a good change. Because एक गारंटी है, देयर इज़ वन पर्सन परमानेंट नाउ जिसका तुम सर खा सकते हो, जिसके साथ तुम हंस सकते हो, रो सकते हो, एंड यू हैव अ सोल्यूशन प्रोवाइडर.
What is your agency? What does it do? And if you could tell us about how do you deliver services in your agency?
PenVmedia is essentially a creative content studio. Like we say, it's create, communicate, collaborate, elevate.
Hello and welcome everyone to another episode of the Female Founders Podcast. My goal with this podcast is to showcase women who have been doing exceptionally well as female founders and bring to you stories of how you can become a female founder. And today I have with me Neha. Hi Neha.
Hi Manmeet.
So Neha is in 21st year of her experience, corporate and a businesswoman now, and I think the reason we vibe so well is because she's a storyteller as well, and today we'll be talking about a lot of stories. She has so many awards to her names, which we will be discussing as we move forward. But with me, let's welcome Neha once again for her time and the golden nuggets that she's going to share today. Thank you so much, Neha, for doing this.
The pleasure is all mine, Manmeet. Really excited to have an amazing conversation and hoping that all the people who are listening to us and all you female founders also can have something that you can take back and apply.
Thank you so much. So we'll start this podcast with one question that I ask all my guests, and that is, why did you choose to become an entrepreneur?
So I think that's something that came very naturally to me in that case. It was something that I had set my heart on, I think around 6 or 7 years after being in the job life. I always knew I want to do something of my own. And in a way, my entire corporate journey also was about acquiring the skill sets, about getting the exposure, about getting the experience, and testing myself in situations where one day I can be confident that I have had a diaspora of experiences, and now that I'm going to run the show and build a business of my own, I will be able to do it successfully. I'm not an MBA graduate in that sense, so I never went to management school, but I think there is no bigger school than life. And almost a decade and a half of my career, that's what I spent learning and doing.
Right, thank you so much. You know, I have a very curious question here, and that comes out of my own experience. A lot of times, entrepreneurship, we also pick up is because of the freedom of choice and the money that is associated with it. Have you ever thought about that I want to become an entrepreneur because of the profits or because of the freedom of choice? Was that a thought in your mind ever?
The profits was not the reason I decided to become an entrepreneur, for sure. But I did realize that profits is what makes you successful as an entrepreneur.
Right.
And that's something I learned on the job of being an entrepreneur. But what drove me was I wanted to carve a niche. I feel that when you decide that you want to be an entrepreneur, it's usually assigned to a purpose. There is a thought behind it. If you want to set up another thing that exists, like I run a creative content studio, and my studio called PenVmedia was set up with a simple thought that we want to be the storyteller for people who have ideas, who maybe are a brand in the making but are struggling with putting their thoughts out on paper. That is why we focus on storytelling and communications. So I knew that I want to be an entrepreneur, so that I was anyway a consultant as well. But then when people have these issues, you become an entrepreneur because you feel that there's a solution that you can provide to a problem. That's something I think most people will also tell you in the sense of management schools or whatever, that when you decide I'm going to be an entrepreneur, all right, you have a passion, you have a drive. Now the question is why, right? And that's also an answer we are trying to find. The why is usually a problem you're trying to solve with the business that you're building. So for me, it was about what problem can I solve, and that solution was the content solutions that we are providing to people with our agency.
Right. I have so many questions from that one answer, and I've been scribbling just because, as you're saying, I have so many questions popping up. But before we get to that, I'll just tell that why did I ask this question? Because when I became an entrepreneur, honestly, I saw that I can build a business, have profits and then have freedom of time. Let me tell you, it's exactly the opposite. The first 2 to 3 years of your business, you have to work 7 days, 24 hours, and then the money is very less, or maybe you don't have the monies because you built in that experience. So that is one reason, I wanted to understand what her take was, and thank you so much for sharing that. While I'll go step by step,
Sure.
Since I said that, I had so many questions coming to my mind. So one thing that you mentioned was that you were working for a lot of years and then you decided to set up your own business and start on your own as an agency. So when you do that, there's a transition phase, right? You
Right.
quit your job and you begin your business, and you're somewhere in between. And when you do that, number one, it takes a strong mindset. Second, finances is something that you have to focus on. So how was your transition like from job to business?
So I did not make a calculated plan, to be very honest, and I went with my gut instinct. I started PenVmedia in 2019. And at that time, I was quite clear that now that I am moving out of the job life, because I was actually heading an agency before that. So I was in the top rung in the, in the hierarchical sense of the company. And I said, now if I am moving out and I'm deciding to do something of my own, I don't want it to be just a self-employed role. Neither do I want it to be just a consultant's role. What I did was I took stock of my skill sets. That allowed me, I did a SWOT analysis, let me simply put it. I did a SWOT analysis of myself, my strengths, my weaknesses, what could be my opportunities, and what would be the threats, in the journey. That's what I first analyzed. And it helped me understand what I could play up to, what I need to guard myself against, because the competition out there is very tough. We all know that. And we are not the only ones who are providing content. We're not the only ones who are writing. So then when I knew what were my strengths, I started further filtering it to what would actually be the niche that can come out of that. You may have a certain skill set that another person also has, but yet there will be something unique in the way you use that skill set. So given that, that's how I started making a list, and I started creating the entire persona and the identity. It was like a character sketch of what my business is going to do, me as a founder, what are my core values, what are we going to do, and how are we going to build, right from the work culture to the kind of clients to the nature of projects we want to do. That was the penciling that I did. That is what I put down in the plan. A lot of people begin with, okay, let's see कि हम लोग कितना invest करने वाले हैं, and then what is going to be the revenue, when is it coming back. They get into making a full business plan. I was like, business plan बनाने के लिए there are formulas.
Right.
But what kind of business you want to build is very driven by the leader who's leading that business.
Correct.
And that's where I focused. That's what helped me. Second thing, when you talk about transitioning, when I was fully confident that I'll be able to make this work, I took the plunge. I was very nervous, to be honest, because I will say this, and this is something I want to say to all the females who want to take a plunge. Take the plunge, because it's once you've taken the plunge, it's either sink or swim. And when you've put yourself in the deep end, you will find a way to swim. There is no way a female is going to sink, because nature's not designed us to sink, to be honest. We are created in a way that, we can help be a survivor. So you'll find a way to survive. And secondly, when it comes to financials, I am very, very grateful to my parents who did a lot of financial planning for me. I had a little bit to fall back on. There was stuff that they had planned for me right from, my childhood days, I would say. My education was not very expensive because I did not study abroad. So I had a little bit of fun to fall back. I had done a bit of savings as well through SIPs and, that kind of stuff, which was very basic financial planning that you do. Once you start earning, you take a portion of your salary, you put it in an SIP. I mean, those are basic things, right? So with that, there was also the full and final settlement that came. Being at a senior post, there was a certain amount I got. So I took all of that to my advantage, and I knew that, okay, the basics are covered. And you're very right. Once you start a business, there is a lot of ideas you have in your head. You can make it happen, but you need to give it a minimum of 1,000 days, which is roughly a little more than 3 years.
Correct.
You survive those 1,000 days and it gives you a different confidence. I survived those 1,000 days, and when I did that, I'm telling you, I literally felt that I have climbed the Mount Everest and I'm at the peak of the summit over there. Yeah, I mean, that's how it felt when I completed those 1,000 days, because that's when your actual journey will begin. So plan for 3 years. You know your financial goals, you know your family goals as a founder, and do that. I know a lot of people who've taken a very smart middle path. They have a consulting on the side which covers certain base, and then they have the rest of the day which gives them the freedom of time. So they have a certain backup financially, because if you're transitioning from being a salaried person to becoming a business owner, 2 things are going to happen to you. You're going to miss a salary coming in at the end of the month, and you're going to be stressed about, I have salaries to pay.
Right, correct.
मुझे कोई सैलरी नहीं दे रहा और मैं लोगों को सैलरी दे रही हूँ, भाई पैसे कहाँ से आने वाले हैं? And that is something which is going to happen. Of course, it's a no-brainer. You get in a couple of clients, before you take the plunge again and you decide to quit a job, and if you don't have much financial backing, you get a few clients. You started as a side gig. It's not difficult to get a few clients जहाँ से आपका महीने का at least 1-1.5 lakh हो रहा है this thing. And of course I had a lot of experience. So if I were to say that, listen, I'm going to start with a retainer that's about 50 grand or 70 grand a month, I did have the trust of that. But my advice, very sincerely, and here I think it should be an advice as well for all you female founders as well, just make sure that you have enough of a lakh and a half coming in terms of your business, in terms of retainers or in terms of projects. That is enough to take the plunge and begin. Because usme agar aapka around 50-60 jitna at a monthly basis also goes towards, maybe a 2-member team of staff that you build. Because as a business owner, you need the freedom of time to be able to build more business. Correct. You can't sit and service your accounts. So 2 things. Make sure you have the staff to service the account. Do not think of that as an unwanted expense. Do not think of that as an extra burden on your business, because if those 2 or 3 key member team that is to be built to execute the business that you're bringing in as a business owner is not solid and is not in place, you're not going to be able to grow the business.
Yes. 100%.
So your human resource is an extremely important resource. It's not a liability. It's not an expenditure. Do not mistake salaries to be an expenditure. You budget it out. And if you do that, it's quite... I had decided to set up my business to be without having a physical office. That was one way in which I reduced the stress on, rent or a physical space or buying a space or anything of that kind, because we are writers, we are creative people, we are designers, we are digital guys, and we are living in the digital era, right?
Correct.
So it's quite easy to take advantage of technology. So when I was transitioning, I set up this entire system for me. I made that whole framework that, okay, I'm going to say like have 2 writers, I'm going to have 1 designer. These are the resources I need. These are people I can collaborate with for the extra services we want to provide apart from the core, which is obviously writing and design and stuff. So I put all of that in place. One thing that helped me, I had a bit of a head start, and I could be very confident, is because I had spent quite a few years in the industry. I had made some very good relationships. So when I was there's a saying in Gujarati, ke odkhan hai sauti motti khan, which in English is very commonly what a line is said today: your network is your net worth.
Yeah.
So if you have spent a lot of time networking, even if you're transitioning from a job to a business, this is another tip I would love to give you guys. When you're on the job, build relations. Today they are working with you because you're an XYZ designated executive or manager or whatever's your post in the company, and that's why the client is working with you. But when you build relationships, eventually, I'm not saying that they become your clients, but they can definitely be a support system. Obviously, when you are starting small, people who are used to being clients of bigger agencies, it is unethical to try and siphon them off. I'm not in favor of that, and that's not what I'm advising. So I hope no one misunderstands anything there. But those clients who've built relations with you will be more than happy to maybe pass on leads to you, to give you recommendations. When you're building your LinkedIn profile, and if you tell them that, hey, can you just recommend me for a skill set? They'll do that. You ask them for a testimonial because you're building your own website or you're creating your portfolio. They will give you that. You tell them that I am starting out and, give me any leads if you have. They will do that. You want resources. I had ex-colleagues who were freelancing or who were also willing to, they had started their own and they were willing to collaborate. That's how I could build a resource pool without making it a liability on the business.
Correct.
So you find what works for you. At the end of the day, yes, you want to make a profit. But when you're starting out, you make sure you have a strong system in place that is going to get the job done. Because at the beginning, more than the profit, the credibility of a job well done is what will help you survive enough that you eventually start making profits. At the beginning, you're in survival mode. Profits come in the second stage, which is your growth mode.
Correct. That is, passing that 1,000 days. There is so much I've scribbled again, but I'll come to that one by one because there are so many aspects. I was listening, I was like, yeah, tick, I relate to that. And then tick, I relate to that. But I'll come to that one by one. I'll take you one step back again. And I would want to ask you, and you very rightly said, I think the combination of having a financial backup, that's for your peace of mind. Because you panic, you don't need the money, but you panic when the money is not coming in. So for the peace of mind, having that financial backup, having the right experience to be able to have that confidence is what you summed up as a combination of a good kickstart to a business and quitting a job. So thank you so much for, combining it for us. But one question I would like to ask you is that what was your eureka moment? Like today you wake up, might not have been this way, but today you wake up and say that tomorrow I'm going to quit my job, I'm going to put my papers and I'm going to start my business. What is that one thing that triggered you? Because that is the story that I want to hear.
Okay, so to be very honest, I don't think I had a massive eureka moment that, okay, I'm going to start a business. It was a gradual progression of things. In 2019, it was a landmark year for me in my life, I would say, because that was the year that I got published. I became a published author. My first book had come out. Yeah. And it was also the year I had got married. And I was pretty much ready to go into the next level of my life, even career-wise. And the agency that I was working with at that time, when we came into a point where, the next level had to be achieved, while we did achieve it, there were certain things happening with the profile where we were not in complete agreement. And I'll be very, very honest. At that point, I felt, though I was very passionate about the job I was doing, that I am somehow not now aligned. And I will always say this, and this is something I emphasize in my company culture because now I have the freedom to build my own culture. Your employees are more important than your clients.
100%. You know, there's this saying, I'm so sorry, but there's this saying which says that you take care of your employees and the employees will take care of your clients.
Exactly, exactly.
Yeah.
I don't think we are living in the era of where the client is the customer's the king and the client is
Yeah.
always right.
Correct.
We also have clients who are a lot more understanding.
Master clients.
We have clients who are a lot more understanding than the clients we used to deal with about
Right.
15, 20 years back, I would say. But when you don't take care of your environment and you don't have employees who are aligned with your company goal, you will not grow as a company. And second, as a leader, it is your duty to make sure that your employee is quite motivated and their personal goals are being achieved, especially when it comes to senior executives or management or the roles. And I was at a senior post and I realized that I know I will always start off something of my own. And it was the 14th year of my career, if I'm not wrong. I said, I think if I now ask myself, is this the next level? Then the answer was no. Continuing in that job and going ahead the way things were going ahead did not seem to be my next level. I said, in that case, I think it is time that I do start off what I always wanted to do, and I look at making the transition, and that's what I did. I quit my job. I served in a notice period. There was a lot of paperwork. There was a long notice period. There were NDAs and stuff because, like I said, I am completely ethical. I do not believe in taking away your ex-agency's clients, and I, till date, 5-6 years of my career, I have not gone back to any of my clients of that agency. But if I have to say, did I have a eureka moment? I think it was that inner voice giving me a nudge, and finally I'm like, okay, I'm listening to you. Stop it. Stop nudging me. I'm listening to you. And then I took the plunge.
Yeah. I think that's a great way to, put perspective in people who are listening, is because starting a business is not a one-time decision. Like she said, there's not one eureka moment where you get up and you feel, oh, I'm going to be a business owner today. It's a mindset you develop. It's a progression. It's a journey. And you kind of, if I use this word, you beta test it. You kind of put it in your head that how does a business owner life feel like, work with some clients while you're on the job, and it's a progression. It's not just one moment you've gotten up and tomorrow you're a business owner. Thank you so much for that perspective.
I want to add to something that you just said. It gave me a thought. I actually had a beta test in the 7th year of my career. Okay.
Yeah.
And that is when I thought that maybe now that I have 6-7 years, I think I got a little ahead of myself over there. I thought maybe I can actually, start doing something of my own. And I decided to begin with freelancing. I said, let me do that. As a freelancer, I'll, get a few clients and then I will start structuring. I did it for about 6 months and I'll tell you what happened. I learned everything that I did not know and I realized what I need to do. And the next 6-7 years of my career, after that about year that I spent, people have a gap year in education these days. I had a gap year in my career, I would say. So in between jobs, that one gap year, which I kind of had nearly a gap year, it was roughly about 8 months. I actually got a clear idea of everything that I need to have that I need to have as a skill set, as resources, everything, so that when I actually set up my own thing, I don't fail. And then I actually started doing projects or taking up roles or doing stints as a consultant, assignment-based work also, which allowed me to master the skill sets or improve the gaps that I had identified. So I was like, here's the thing. I am preparing for that role and that journey. I have appointed myself to be the CEO of whatever will be my future company. And now that I have these gaps identified, the next 7 to 8 years, I'm doing jobs. I'm going to continue to do that. But everything that I'm doing is going to lead to that persona of mine. So, on a lighter note, I would say I was getting paid because I was still on a job. But what people did not know is I was getting paid to grow, to evolve, to upskill. And yeah, I was able to further my learnings and agendas. Of course, I was quite candid about it with my employers also that, I want to do XYZ kind of project because I want to acquire the skill set. And they did see it as being proactive and they were quite happy to do that. I was enthusiastic, but I knew it was all leading up to this day. And this is something that I also have inculcated in my employees and in my team. They are more than welcome to say, you assign me on this project, but hey, I have an interest in that project and that's something I want to learn. So will you, let me be a part of that team? And there's usually no is not an answer they get.
That's nice. This blends in to my next question very nicely because in your conversation in the beginning, you mentioned that you did not go to abroad for higher studies or an MBA or anything of that sort. I would want to ask you that why didn't you choose to go to an MBA or maybe a school where you could learn content if that was something that
Okay.
yeah.
Okay. So I think I'm a very blessed person. I've been writing since I can remember. I was, I think, in the 5th standard when I won my first poetry competition.
Oh my god.
And I've grown up in a home where, with my mother being an MA in literature, arts, books, writing, all of that was quite an environment that I had. So for me, everything that's happened with me in the last 20 years has been a natural progression. I have seen myself writing, I've seen myself reading. I ended up doing my grads in literature, I ended up doing my postgrad in journalism. I went on to work with magazines, interviewed a lot of people. I think, yeah, so because I did a lot of learning on the job, it never struck me that I want to do an MBA, to be honest. Second thing, I was a very curious cat, to be honest. In my first job, when I started my career and I was working with magazines, in those days, we actually had a printing press where we were still doing transparencies and physical printing. It was not as digital. In fact, Adobe didn't exist. Today, pages are made on Adobe. We used to work with something known as Quark Express. Okay,
Yeah.
so I'm not a dinosaur. We just lived in a different era. But so I was very curious. मुझे printing press जाके बैठना था, मुझे देखना था वो कैसे print कर रहे हैं. When I came into being a editor or a sub editor or whatever post I had, I would go beyond my role because I was very curious. So I think my curiosity was something that helped me learn a lot of things. When I decided I want to acquire skill sets or I want to test skill sets, because I knew quite a few languages, I've actually tested myself even in translations. I wanted to work with books. I worked in a publishing house. I actually translated books to see, can I do it? How good am I? And I've actually done books. I've also had a bit of spiritual leaning and interest in psychology. And I have done books on Jainism, which we've translated from Gujarati to English. I was very blessed that for 3 years, nearly 3 years, I actually could work on the Bhagavad Gita, translating it from Hindi to English. So when I decided I want to test a particular skill, I was able to do a job that allowed me to test it. When I decided I want to hone a particular skill or acquire a particular skill, I could do assignments that helped me do that. And learning on the field, I think, was really more effective for me than a lot of classroom learning. Having said that, I do not disregard formal education. After I became a business owner, I've still faced challenges and I have chosen formal education. By formal, I don't mean I went back to college and I got an MBA or I went and did a master's or something of that kind. But what I did do is I actually went back to class and I did study. I studied with business coaches. I studied with people who've known more than me, who've been in the industry. If I wanted to learn digital marketing, I knew it would be a service. I may not sit down and do a digital marketing campaign, but I did not want to speak to a team of digital marketers who are running the show and I have no idea what they are doing. I didn't want to be a clueless leader. And because of that, I did learn. I did enroll myself in courses. I did enroll myself in programs whenever I felt that, hey, this is a new innovation happening. See, learning is a lifelong process. And you can decide what you need to learn basis the phase and stage of life that you are in. Because to be honest, what we learned in school is not really applicable to us today, right? So it's not like you can always go back to school.
Right.
And at every age in life, there will be a school you will need to go to.
That's correct. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think I 100% agree with the fact where you said that in every day and in every phase of life, there will be a school you would have to go to in that stage of life, is because I believe the moment you stop learning is the moment you stop growing.
Absolutely.
Having said that, I think there are two things that are coming to my mind. One, honestly, I disregard formal education. When I become a mother, I do not want to put children into school. I will homeschool them or send them to a school that endorses life skills, because the cramming education that we have gone through is not something that is supporting us today.
Yeah.
Life skills or skills that are bringing us, the money or the experience that is needed today. And you very rightly said that you invested in business coaches. So that is something that I would endorse, or I would like to go forward to, is because you need to learn that life skill that adds value and adds experience. I would want to add one more thing. I loved how you said you are blessed. I would really like to use that word, is because I think as you move up the ladder, there are a lot of people who try to take the credit for something that is happening in their life to themselves, saying that I have done it, or this has happened to me, or something like that. And that is a space where you get that indication from that person that, okay, this is temporary. A downfall will come for this person. But when you are humble, when you acknowledge that you were blessed, something, or I may say the word lucky, you acknowledge the fact that this was given to me. I have been blessed. So I absolutely appreciate and encourage you for using that word, is because we should always be humble and say, this was given to me and this is what I have. Absolutely. So thank you so much.
I think talent is God's gift, or the universe's gift. You may be talented. How you use the talent is in your hand. But you need to be talented in the first place.
Correct.
And that is something that you are born with. Skills can be acquired. Talents need to be honed. They are there in you.
Yeah, quote of the day. We are going to tag Neha on LinkedIn using this quote.
All right.
Yeah.
I shall reshare it.
I'll come back to a few more questions that I had that I've been scribbling. When we were talking initially, you mentioned 2-3 words that kind of sparked a chord in me. You mentioned words like becoming a leader. And I think I'll point it there is because I really feel that a business is driven by a founder's idea and the way, they have the company culture. And the second you mentioned about network, having the right people. And the third was building relationships. Having the right relationships is because that is something that comes back to you. I would just want your thoughts a little bit on these 3 words and how has that impacted your business, becoming a leader, having the right network and building the right relationships.
I think there's a flow. And I'm going to take this in the reverse of what you said, because that's the flow for me.
Correct.
When you start building relationships, it don't be calculative about it. Okay, you're building a relationship. It's not an arranged marriage. It's a love marriage. I think there's no other way to put it, because you are not going with an interview form and meeting people and saying, "Tere mein ye cheezein hain, ye checklist hai. Okay, now I'm building a relation with you."
That's a business deal.
No, but even with a business deal, you know what you want from the deal, but who you're dealing with is the relationship.
Wow.
So for me, the way I look at it is, go beyond knowing the person than just the reason you all have met at work. See, we've met at work. Yes, I could be the head of content of an agency. I could be the editor of the agency. I could of the magazine, or whatever may be my role. And I'm meeting that person in that capacity. But when you're meeting, try to go a little deeper. that is what will create a spark where a relationship could begin, and you may feel a potential that there could be a relationship.
Correct.
Do not build relationships because it's a formula. That's not going to last. That's not going to survive. Because I take it as a compliment when you mentioned that, there's a certain humility to me. I have not tried to be humble. It's not something I've contrived or again put in place. But this is a compliment that whenever I received, even in my starting of my career, I kept that student alive. So a lot of my ex-bosses are still mentors to me. My bosses from my first job are still mentors to me, even 21 years down the line. So when you try to connect with people at a more human level, it helps you build a relationship.
Correct.
Second, you probably can give a lot more value. For me, value is a very important word. And it is, I think, the core of everything that I have done. It's practically the essence of my being. If I am sitting with someone, even for 5 minutes, and we've not gone back leaving something with each other, even if it's as much as little as a smile, then the 5 minutes is a waste.
Yeah.
So if I have met someone, if like for example, I was interviewing Mr. Leslie Lewis, okay, this is when I was barely a year old in my career, year and a half old. And the manager who had put the interview opportunity in place was representative of a music company. They were doing the interview opportunities because it was Leslie sir's debut as a music director. And she told me, she's like, Neha, he's hardly talking to people. And they knew that my interviews usually go on for at least half an hour. They would make that happen because they knew they would get a beautiful story if their client would give me that much time. So they would put in the effort, and I would do what I could to make sure that since I've been given a little extra time, I give them a story that they would remember. She said, Leslie sir is not in the mood, or something is not right. He's hardly talking to people for 5-10 minutes. How will you manage? I said, Ruk jao. Let me go in. When my turn came, I went in. I kid you not, it was officially half an hour. We came out at the end of almost an hour and a half. And he kept chatting. And then later I got to know that happened is because he said, I love talking to her because she knew her subject matter. One, I have a little bit of musical affinity, so while I may not be a great singer or a great musician or a great artist, at least I can have a conversation. So I think that helped me because of the affinities. And third, she asked me a lot of relevant things which I had to ask myself, and she went deep. So I really took that as a compliment, and that's how you build relationships. A week later, when I had to meet Hari sir, who's the other half of the Colonial Cousins, he already knew about me.
Yeah.
So that stayed with me, and that's when I realized that when you're talking about relationships, if you end up meeting someone even a month later or 5 years later, and if they still remember you, you've done something right at that time.
Correct.
Okay. So do not be calculative about building a relationship. Try to genuinely connect with the person, and that warmth goes a long way. Second, if that survives, it leads to having a network. When you have a lot of people who've actually connected with you, there's a warmth and all of it, it becomes a network, right?
Correct.
So yes, we do network, and there are a lot of organizations you all can be a part of, and you can meet people. But if you're meeting people and not connecting with people, even those networking events are not going to give you anything. So connect with them, go a little deeper. So yeah, you build relations, eventually that becomes a network. When you're networking, even if you're meeting new people who you are looking to again build relationships with, be natural, be warm, connect deeper. And all of this eventually also helps you become a better leader.
Correct.
Because there's a lot of communication that goes in, you're genuinely listening. Who said that my employees are not a part of my network? who said that only if I am at an XYZ networking event or on an XYZ networking platform, and that person is also a business owner or a founder by designation, only they are my networks. No. My employees, in fact, are my brand ambassadors. I would love it when they go out and say, hey, I take pride in working at PenVmedia. I want to recommend, okay, so I'm going to say this. I have survived for 5 years in this game and in this business. Till date, I have not spent a single rupee on any ad or, doing anything of that kind. Everything we have built is organic, quite literally. My first client came in because there were friends, there were colleagues who were like, "Tu khud ka start kariye, main lead de raha hu." Okay. When I did become a part of networking groups, they connected with me, they sent me leads. When I needed to increase my team, and I told my team existing, it was a small 2-member, 3-member team, and I said, hey guys, we're looking to add more people. Ma'am, I have friends, I think they should work here. And they brought in friends. I didn't have to headhunt, I didn't need HR. So,
Yeah.
networking is the most underrated tool, and also a lot misinterpreted and misused tool.
I agree. I think I love the word misused, is because I think hanging out with the right people just makes all the difference. And I really like the perspective, the way you said that just don't network. And who said employees are not your network? Just build a relationship, and that's the core of it. Once you have a relationship, people will want to do things for you because you have that relationship. So that's a beautiful perspective. Thank you for putting it in place. Okay, and I think I was just thinking about, and you said it, so it blends in very well. I really want to know, because this is something that I talk about a lot, and I'm a storyteller myself. What does a story mean to you? Like, what exactly is a story?
It could be the personification of an emotion. It could be something that inspires you. It could be something that makes you think, but it will still be the personification of an emotion. Emotion is another misunderstood word. People feel emotional means, oh, you're being weepy, or you're getting low, or you're getting extra is a word that the millennials use. Maybe, I don't know, but honestly, what is trust if not an emotion? When people say you have to have an ad that people see and they have to buy your product, why am I going to look at an ad and buy a product? Because as a consumer, I feel that brand can be trusted.
Correct.
For something as banal as a soap, you have tons of brands. Now you have handmade soaps also. You have so many things coming out. And I decide that I'm going to stick to an XYZ brand. I don't want to look for more. You've earned my trust. Trust is an emotion. So when it comes to a story, you need to identify what is going to be the one thing that the people who are reading the communication about your brand, because I'm going to tell it from a brand storytelling point of view, I'm going to answer your question, because we help build brand stories, we tell brand stories. So if today I have a soap brand as a client of mine, I will try to understand, why should I buy your soap? And the answer is not, oh, we are handmade, we have a great fragrance, our ingredients are real, oh, we are naturally sourced, or we are farm to, product or what. That's not the answer of why I should buy your product. If we even look at some of the brands which are doing well today, like for example, in silver, there's a brand called Quirksmith. It's not just the art. You had an Amrapali that is also extremely artistic. But you have two sisters who've come together and built that brand. You have a clothes brand like a Suta. They are making saris feel like the go-to normal wear, even for the people who are like in their 20s or so. Again, it's been started by two sisters. You have a brand like My Muse, which is massagers for adults and stuff, and we all know what that means. Started by a couple who wanted to enhance intimacy.
Yeah.
Can we not go to Bangkok and get stuff? People can. But when you start building a brand that is coming from a place of a personal story, I'm like, oh, you used it? Maybe I can trust.
Yeah, you went through it, you feel it.
Yeah. I'll give you an example of a client of mine, okay? A client of mine called ZS Motorcycle Gear was started by the founder of ZS Motorcycle Gear. It was safety gear for motorcyclists and bikers. He had a near-death experience. And he realized that the only reason that he was stuck in that situation on the side of the road is because he had no means to call for help, and the place did not have much accessibility. It was one of those patches. And that is when he said, I don't want my other biker friends to go through that. And that's how his brand was born. So now when you tell me that why should I buy a ZS Motorcycle Gear product, I will tell you because he knows what safety means. It saved his life. And he is doing it for the community. He's created a product because he knows the pain points. You're actually solving a problem that you have faced, and you know that there is a community of people who are facing a similar problem, and you're genuinely working towards solution providing.
Right, correct.
So when you tell me what is the story going to be, if it's a story that we are working on for our client, this is the level at which I am going to go, and this is how deep I'm going to go, where I trust you. You have amazing ingredients, or you have amazing quality. You could be amazing in my lifestyle. You could fit in very well. Can you become so integral to my lifestyle that I don't want to leave you? Yeah. There would be a reason for that. That reason is what we try to find out. You look at a brand like Dove. The reason it managed to gain popularity over a Pantene, which was its competitor at that time, was because they connected with, they did not have a brand ambassador. They connected with people at a very normal level. People like you and me, who may not be a glam model, actually became the face of the brand.
It's the relatability. Are you able to relate to the brand? Does it, feel like your own? And while you were sharing all the examples, the one thing that was, coming to my mind is, again and again, your mess becomes your message. Your mess becomes your message.
Yes.
Is because you go through it and then you tell people, hey, I went through it. I know the pain. And that's why, you can relate to me.
Yeah.
So I think beautiful examples. Thank you so much for sharing those again. I'm sure all the listeners listening to us would have perspectives, and next time you look at a brand, you look at an ad, you'll be able to understand that are you able to trust it or not, or what is the feeling that you're getting. I'm sure this conversation will help you. And while you were talking, one thing that was coming to my mind is that today the brands impact people a lot in terms of ad, in terms of videos, in terms of this podcast. Each video, each piece is impacting people. My question is that what kind of role does a content play in people's businesses today?
I think content is where the game begins. Because it's all about the messaging, right? You even if you say that, oh, we have to market this product, how are you going to market? If you don't have the right positioning, if you don't have the right communication, if you don't have the right message going out to your target consumer, then your marketing plans are going to not work. Right. And all of that is going to be driven by content. So I've often said this to, people even in the digital space, because a lot of marketing these days is digital marketing, right? And you may have a great SEO game and you may have a great page rank. Now, usually all that is achieved, which means chances are that a blog on your website is going to rank over there and is going to come up in a keyword search that they've done. When a consumer looking for something has clicked on the link and the page opens, if what they are reading or seeing on that page does not enthrall them, does not engage them, they will never hit that inquiry button or that book now or whatever call to action that you may want to have. Because it's no point in just having a great digital marketing game without the face of that game being attractive enough. And the face of that game is content. So I've seen crazy things, like everyone knows to make SEO work, you have to seed the keywords in the content. Okay, you understand that. You need to seed it a particular number of times. Okay, people have understood that. I have seen them write 2 paras, copy paste those very same 2 paras at least 4 times. Kyun? Because wo keyword itni XYZ bar repeat hona hai. And I have come to a page where I'm seeing a brand name attached, I'm seeing that content. As a consumer, what am I going back with? You've not given me value, you've not given me tip, you've not given me something to like you, and you've definitely not given me something to remember you. So I'm not coming back. I'm not engaging with you. So I think content is where the game definitely begins. Content was, is, and will always be the king or the queen, or the whatever gender neutral word you may choose to use for it, because apparently we need a gender neutral word. We can't say content is king. But I'm going to say content is the doyen of everything.
Right.
It's where it begins.
Yes, I think put in very well together. I would want to ask that why did you choose content to be the ace of your business game?
I think content chose me to become the ace
Oh
of
my
my
God,
game.
I love that.
Because, like I said, since I can remember, the pen has been my best friend. If I'm struggling with an emotion, I write it down. If I want to express something and make it very personal, I write it down. If I want to make it impactful and I want to clear my thoughts, so my diary is like a pensieve for me. For those of you all who get the Harry Potter reference, a thought comes to my mind, it goes onto the paper, and the minute it goes onto the paper, the chaos from that clarity comes. My mess becomes my message, quite literally there, I would say. And I think, I will say I was blessed, my favorite word. I realized quite early on that this is my strongest skill set. It's something that is, I think, ordained to me. And if this is the gift that I do not make the most use of, I don't know how I'll be successful in some field in my life. That's how I felt about it. When we even took an aptitude test, as most parents do, कि बेटे का बच्चे का जो भी है career हम लोग बेटा बेटी का figure out करते हैं. My teachers also were pretty confident that she will go into writing or media in some way. And it came out in the aptitude test also, and it was a surprise for nobody. When I did my further education and I started working, I took to it as naturally as a fish to water. I did not have to learn to swim. I was just swimming. You put me in the water and I was just swimming. It came that naturally to me. So that is why I strongly feel content chose me to become an ace in my game. It's always been my trump card. In fact, this is what I often say, that content is the joker of your game. Because a joker can be played however you want. And तुमको अगर बाजी पलटनी है तो जोकर ही तुम्हारी बाजी पलटेगा. So if you've tried a great digital marketing game and you're not getting the results, chances are your content is the problem. You change the content and you'll get the results. That's what we've done for clients.
Correct. I am still, short of words. I'm still absorbing that whole how content shows you, and the perspective that the Joker could, जैसे you said कि Joker बाजी पलट सकता है, and maybe the content is the problem. I'm still digesting and I'm thinking, what is going to be my next question? That is the kind of space I am in. I'm sure that emotion is getting across to the viewers and they feel the same when they listen to this conversation. Very quickly, I would want to know, because you mentioned it, that Pen has been your best friend. Is that why you named your agency PenVmedia?
You need to thank my husband for the name of the agency, to be honest. So, PenV is coming also from Envy. So Envy being my initials, Neha Ved, Envy also being me and my husband, that's Neha and WICCI, and both of us are storyteller. He's a visual storyteller and a filmmaker. I am in the writing space, and I tell brand stories. So I wanted Envy to be in the crux of the name or the title of the agency. I also wanted the name to be in a manner where you hear it and you know what we are offering. So when you hear the word PenV and media, you know that we are offering you media services and it's connected to the pen in some way. But I did not want it to be envy because, it sounds like jealousy and stuff. I didn't like the vibe of it. I didn't like the energy of it. And I was telling this to my husband also. And he's like, what if you say PenV and not envy? And I'm like,
Oh,
That was a eureka moment.
I was about to say that was a eureka moment.
Yes.
Right. And I think beautifully, now this is, a proof of concept, an example of how a brand tells a story. Now, this is a story of how you named your brand. So, everything that happens in your business is a story. Every step that you take is a story. I would also want to ask you a few intense questions before we get to a light. Yeah, let's go deep because our audience is a female audience, so we just don't stop at business. There is one layer deep to it, so I'll ask you a few intense questions, and it is completely up to you for you to choose to answer them or not to answer them, and then we'll move towards the end. My question to you would be that growing up as a woman, maybe your parents would not have, and I'll try to choose my words while I say it. Your parents might not have ever judged you or questioned you or, asked you to do a certain things. But did you ever experience anything of the sort where the society or your relatives, anybody who came to you and told you, you are a girl, don't do this, or this is how you operate? Did you ever get that kind of a feeling?
I think many of them thought it, but no one had the guts to say it to me because I've been a little too much of a culture shock for a lot of traditionalists. Let me put it that way.
Let's
And if I'm clear about something, then everything else is white noise. I just shut it out because मुझे clarity है ना, then I'm going after it. I will just shut out everything. You're quite right. I've had a very encouraging environment. My mom, coming from the literature and arts background herself, is, I think, that was my playground, and that's how my affinities for the artistic and writing world grew the way they grew. And of course, I have a career out of it today. My dad is a doctor, and he's a very senior anesthesiologist. So he's a complete science and medical guy. It took him a little while to grasp the whole idea of what I was doing. And if you look at it, I haven't had a linear path. And I'm going to say this, and I'm going to also quote business coach Rajiv Talreja on that success is shabby. Success is not a straight line, it's shabby. So if it's not the era where, you've entered a job and you go continuously doing that, you're climbing the ladder, and then after an X number of years, you've taken your retirement and your PPF and, your career's over. That's not a career. That's a typical job goer's life, and it is not something that's very relevant to the times we are living in. So, if you look at it, my career is not in sync with my academics. I did my grads with literature, like majors in literature, English literature with sub-majors in psychology, sociology. But then my post-graduation was in journalism. And then my career, I went from working with magazines to also working in PR, Marcom, Corpcom, different diverse fields. Because like I said, I was acquiring skill sets, testing skill sets. So I wanted to be in a space of strategic content. And today, the work that we do at PenVmedia is drastically different from the academic space this thing grew up in. So I have quite chosen the path that I wanted. I would also say this, I surrendered to the universe, and I kept, whenever I would ask, like, I'm feeling stuck and I need an answer, it would come in unexpected ways to me. I think we need to introspect, shut out the noise which is not encouraging you. And this applies, I think, to both genders, because we are also living in an era where the boys are picking up jobs or careers or streams that have not been very typical to boys before.
Correct.
Okay. Professions like maybe dancing. It was okay for a lady to become a Bharatnatyam dancer, but you tell a guy he wants to be a Kathak dancer and this thing, they would have the same reaction as a lot of other girls would be like, "Tujhe career kyun banana hai?"
Right,
Okay.
right.
So this is going to be my suggestion, advice stemming from my experience, that you have clarity, you start making your plan and you go after it. And if you are a mother to a son, it applies to your sons as well. So not just your daughters. You are raising strong daughters. You also raise the sons to be able to handle such strong daughters and be strong men. I think that's what we need.
100%.
Listen to yourself.
Yeah.
Don't hesitate to take guidance. Don't hesitate to tell people I want help. And trust me, when you say I want help, there will be 100 people who will come out to help you. Find what works for you, take it, trust your instinct. Don't hesitate to experiment either. Because if you don't try something, you would not have learned whether it works or it doesn't. You never fail. You either succeed or you learn. That's how I take it.
Yeah, I agree. It's not a failure, it's a lesson or a learning, 100%.
Absolutely.
I think I would also like to point out, as you said, that ask. You're speaking to so many women who have been doing exceptionally well. And this comes from all of them. All the strong women that I've been talking to tell me and give me, this advice for my audience is that ask for help. Because as women, we are naturally built, oh, I'm going to do it. I have 4 hands. I'll manage the house, I'll do this, I'll do that, and I'll do everything by myself. So I think that advice of seeking help, asking for help is very, very nice. That also blends in to the second question, which is that I heard Kiran Bedi say that there are 3 M's in a woman's life that changes them. And the first is marriage. And you've already crossed that path. You've been married for the last 5 years. How did marriage impact of you being, a career woman? And second, it's not just about your partner. It's also with the people that you're now connected to, because it's another family that's being added to your list, right? Did you seek help from your partner or the new family that you were into? Because as a married woman, there's a lot you have to do again. There's a balancing that is there. So how did you balance, or how did you approach as you got married being a businesswoman?
So I am one of those people who loves being married. I love being married. I don't think marriage, when they say, oh, marriage changes you, a lot of people say it with fear, like it's a warning.
But it's for the good.
And I am definitely one of those people who say it's a good change. Because एक गारंटी है, देयर इज़ वन पर्सन परमानेंट नाउ जिसका तुम सर खा सकते हो, जिसके साथ तुम हंस सकते हो, रो सकते हो, एंड यू हैव अ सोल्यूशन प्रोवाइडर बिकॉज समटाइम्स यू नीड टू pick somebody's brain. So when you're checking compatibility na, also check intellectual compatibility. I will definitely say that.
Yeah.
It makes a lot of difference. You may not need to necessarily work together. We are quite blessed that we are two sides of the same coin. But it doesn't mean that you have to necessarily be able to work together, but you need to be able to understand each other. So that's important. Your intellectual compatibility is very important. Whether you're getting married at the advice of your family or you're meeting through friend or dating platforms, whatever, amongst all the checks, do that. Second, be vociferous in voicing your goals and ambitions when you're entering a marriage.
100%. Thank you so much for saying that. I have been shouting it out loud to people that please voice your goals.
Yeah. Because if your husband, prospective husband, and your in-laws, the family that you're going to become a part of, are not aware that you have certain goals, dreams, ambitions, etc. for yourself, and that you're very strong about it and you don't emphasize it enough, then it was unfair to say, oh, they did not support me. If they don't know that you need certain support, how are they going to support you?
Yes.
Okay? Be very aware of what is a deal breaker for you. Because to be honest, it's all hunky-dory when you're dating, and that's amazing. There's a lot of endorphin flowing through you. Once that euphoria starts settling and you now come into reality is where the actual journey begins. Okay? I'm not going to use the word game in this context because, like we said, in the journey of an entrepreneur, there is a point where you cross the 1,000-day mark and the game begins. In your personal life also, when you cross the 1,000-day mark, the journey begins. Okay. I'm also one of those people where I may be very clued in with the contemporary scenario of things. I'm a little traditionalist that you may take time to get married, but that's okay. But once you get married, it's it. I'm still one of those people. Okay. I do not think divorce is a taboo, but just because you have an option doesn't mean your setup has to be in a way that you have an exit plan.
Correct.
Don't walk into a marriage thinking that I'm going to have an exit plan. Okay.
I think the approach is completely wrong when you enter a marriage with that fact that I have an option B. That means that you're not ready for it. Something goes wrong, something beyond your control.
Correct.
Of course, you can then have that option. But then entering a marriage with that mindset is that you're ready for the disaster.
Exactly. Exactly. I mean, why do you need to say जब कोई बात बिगड़ जाए तुम देना साथ? मेरा बात बिगड़नी क्यों देनी है?
I love that.
Don't ना. I mean, बिगड़ने के बारे में क्यों सोचना है?
Correct.
So, if the foundation is right, once you and your partner as a couple have had the conversation of the kind of life you're going to lead, and I would say that involves at least 5 to 7 5-year plans, because I would assume your lifespan sees you being married at least for 25-35 years.
Correct.
So then you make sure you have the chat with your in-laws.
Yeah.
Like you have had it with your parents, and you may not need to have a formal chat again with your parents because they've seen what you've been doing with your life. Also have the chat with your immediate family, especially your in-laws. Because when they know what to expect from the life that you both are going to lead, and they also are aligned, there are no surprises, and then there are no shocks either.
Correct.
If you are choosing to live in a different city, pre-discuss it. Don't have this entitled approach that it's my life, my rules. I'm sorry. There's a family involved.
Yeah.
You are your parents' child, so your partner is also somebody's child.
Correct.
Right? And if you're that connected and you know the journey that your partner's been through, you also know what's important to your partner.
Yeah, I think it's coming together, it's blending. So
It's respect.
yeah, correct. That's the right word. It's respect.
Because if you say, हाँ तेरा ये है, मेरा ये फंडा है, this is what I'm going to do. So, you need to be in agreement, and I'm a woman, so that makes me a feminist. And if you are not, you're an anti-feminist, then that's stupid. You've spelled disaster.
Right.
Because the word you used, it has to blend in.
Right.
And only if you respect your spouse or your partner then only can the prospective husband become a great husband. You cannot expect that he's not a good husband, keep complaining about it, when you've not told him what you want. He doesn't know how to be a good husband.
Right.
So communicate. It's also a lot of years of generational conditioning where women feel, ये मेरा फर्ज है. हाँ, आपका फर्ज है. तो आप सुन के, you just assume and you do certain things and you don't give much thought to it. But if you just break a little out of it, and when you both talk and you put that system in place, there is no way that your parents will not eventually understand it and come around if maybe they have a little bit of different expectations. Second, if you're very convinced again and you have clarity, hold on to it. Because what is a non-negotiable for you in life? A, know your individual non-negotiables. B, communicate them. Then as a couple, have your non-negotiables. And draw that circle around yourself that ये हमारा दायरा है. Because only the two people in that relationship can make or break it. Don't pass the blame to family members. They may say things. You don't have to listen to it. They may tell you need to do it. You don't have to do it if you don't agree. If you feel that, there is a certain amount of, friction that's coming in or something of that kind, draw the line.
Yeah.
And approach it with your partner.
Correct.
No third person can be strong enough to change what the two of you want if the two of you are strong together.
Correct. That's true. It's, 1 on 1, 11. Like we say, एक और एक 11 होता है, तो 100%. Uh,
I was again very blessed on both sides of the family.
Same here. We use the same word. I also
Yeah.
say that, I'm blessed. I think I'm able to relate to you on a lot of levels. Moving towards the end of the podcast, I usually keep this question for the end of the podcast primarily, is because I want people to go through the journey. I want them to understand what you've been through, what were your challenges, what did you learn, what did you go through, how did you build the business that you wanted to. Is because if I ask this question in the beginning, it can put off the audiences because they might be, considering, oh, she's maybe arrived, she's there, and how do I get there? I'm just at step one. So I usually don't ask this question in the beginning, and this is why I'm giving you context that why don't I ask the question in the beginning, is because once they've been through the journey, now this makes sense to them. Now they understand that, what you're doing and why you're doing. So my question to you is, as second last question of the podcast, is that what is your agency? What does it do? And if you could tell us about how do you deliver services in your agency?
Okay. So PenVmedia is essentially a creative content studio. Like we say, it's create, communicate, collaborate, elevate. We have 4 verticals, which is our unique content solutions, which is our primary vertical, where we focus on providing content solutions that covers written content, audiovisual content, as well as designed content. That could be for avenues like social media, that could be for profiles, for websites, for brochures, even pitch decks, investor decks. It could be any form of anything that's connected to putting your brand out there, to building your brand, to also marketing your brand. Okay, that's where unique content solutions comes in. The next we have is the second vertical we have is the PenV Collective. The collective is a commemoration of all the ministry of experts of the respective domains. So what happens is when a client needs something more than just content solutions, then through the collective we can actually be an end-to-end service provider for the more multi-layered projects, because we operate at a B2B and a B2C level. When I say B2B, what I mean is a relationship between an agency and me is a B2B. So a web development agency may say, hey Neha, we need a content partner, and all the websites that we are going to build will be written by your team, and then that's how we build a B2B relationship, which could be a retainer basis, which could be a project basis. That depends on the relationship that we have. And it could be with social media agencies, it could be with business consultants. Like there are a lot of people I know who have communities of where they are helping trainers and coaches grow, and they need to produce books, they need to produce websites. There's a lot. So those become B2B relationships. B2C is when a brand directly comes and says that, hey, we need support on growing our brand and we need to do an XYZ activity. Now that could be to boost their sales, that could be to generate more leads, it could be for anything that is ultimately helping them grow their business. But this is in the case of the brand, and the brand could be an individual. Like we produce books for trainers and coaches. We also produce a lot of personal branding content. In fact, we are quite deep in the personal branding space, where people have a lot of thoughts, but they are not able to streamline it. They're not able to put forth in different mediums. We have a concept called content compounding, where the clients saves a lot of time with the strategies that we build to take that one piece of content and then compound it to suit different mediums. If you're building a personal brand, you're likely to be on Instagram, LinkedIn, and YouTube. At least these 3 platforms is a given. You would also have emails and blogs also that you would be doing. But a brand personality has to be consistent no matter what tool you're choosing to put your story out. And that's where we come in. And we also run an internship program where educational institutions place their students with us to gain live experience.
Right.
We help them build their profile. If it's a gap year and they're looking to go abroad, they've worked with us for a period of a year also at times, but it could be a 3 month, 6 month, 1 year, depending on their requirement. And we have an initiative called the PenVmedia, where we give consulting and guidance and support to especially women entrepreneurs, a lot of them who maybe have started a business at home, especially a lot of businesses that came up during the COVID period where they started working from home and they started building businesses at home. And now they are like, no, now we have a business. I mean, most of them have hit the 1,000-day mark now, right? And they want to grow, but they sometimes get lost. So we give them the guidance and consulting. And if they need direct services, we are happy to do that in a rebated manner and give them support. So that's what we do with our initiative, PenVmedia. Essentially, the PenVmedia universe. That's why it's craft, communicate, collaborate, and elevate.
Thank you so much for explaining that to us in detail. We will definitely put Neha's information in the description, her LinkedIn link, her Instagram, how to reach out to her. Please go to her DMs and tell her that you loved the podcast. Connect with her and also see opportunities if you would want to work with her agency. One last question that I would love to ask, and that is something that I've learned from a creator. You've done so well. You're in, the 21st year of your experience, your career, your business. So many laurels and awards to your name. आपने कभी सोचा था फीमेल फाउंडर्स पॉडकास्ट पे आओगे?
Okay, it really makes me feel like probably I'm on Netflix now with Kapil Sharma also. And I'm glad I got this opportunity because I love the name, firstly, Female Founders Podcast, because I have often said this, every woman needs a woman who can help her grow.
Correct.
And I think we are living in an era where I want people to stop saying औरत ही औरत की दुश्मन होती है. I mean, that's like that's too 80s and too melodramatic and too nonsensical. We need more women who support women. We need more women who lift other women up. Yes, she can, and she can do it. But if there is somebody who's helping her do it, it's a lot more relatable when it's woman to woman.
That's true.
So let women to women be beyond nail polish and lipstick suggestions or boyfriend gossip or, all that still happens. Your girl tribe is always going to be there when you have those kind of issues. But it would be lovely, if instead of a baby shower, somebody started a business and you have a business shower where you're buying their products and supporting them.
I think that's the start of it. Us sitting in this room having this conversation is the start of it. Thank you so much for your time today, for sharing so much in detail, sharing all the stories, sharing all the nuggets. I have loved the conversation, absolutely. Thank you so much once again. And I would love to tell all the listeners who are watching this podcast that please like, share and subscribe, and definitely share it with that one woman you think can listen to this conversation and have the motivation to kickstart her business. Thank you so much, Neha, once again.
Thank you so much for having me on your Female Founders podcast, and wishing all of you the best, and hope this created some value for you.
Thank you.